Good morning everyone. It is daily devotional time. I'm a little confused because I skipped a devotional earlier in the series, so I'm just doing a catch-up one now, so sorry if you've been following us along in order and in real time, because this one will be out of order. But if you're lucky enough to be catching up just like I am, I guess, then this should follow in the right section, because Cheryl's going to work her magic and this will follow on nicely. So, I'm reading from Acts 14, 8 to 20. In Lystra there sat a man who was lame. He had been that way from birth and had never walked. He listened to Paul as he was speaking. Paul looked directly at him, saw that he had faith to be healed, and called out, "Stand up on your feet." At that the man jumped up and began to walk. When the crowd saw what Paul had done, they shouted in the Lycaonian language, "The gods have come down to us in human form." Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul they called Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. The priest of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the city, brought bulls and wreaths to the city gates, because he and the crowd wanted to offer sacrifices to them. But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of this, they tore their clothes and rushed out into the crowd, shouting, "Friends, why are you doing this? We too are only human like you. We are bringing you good news, telling you to turn from these worthless things to the living God, who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in them. In the past he let all nations go their own way. Yet he has not left himself without testimony. He has shown kindness by giving you rain from heaven and crops in their seasons. He provides you with plenty of food and fills your hearts with joy." Even with these words they had difficulty keeping the crowd from sacrificing to them. Then some Jews came from Antioch and Iconium and won the crowd over. They stoned Paul and dragged him outside the city, thinking he was dead. But after the disciples had gathered around him, he got up and went back into the city. The next day he and Barnabas left for Derbe. So, really interesting passage actually. I think one of the key things that I'm looking at when I see it is that actually people can be confused by miracles and by signs. And I think quite often we think to ourselves, oh, if they could just see this, if they could just see it, then they'd get it. But actually seeing it isn't enough. Seeing a miracle, seeing a sign, it's not always enough. There has to be a heart change, a heart encounter. And for these people in Lystra or Lystra, I'm not sure how you say it, they hadn't had that heart encounter with Jesus. And so when they saw the miracles and the signs, they were confused. And Paul does his best, doesn't he? He tries to persuade them, he tries to explain to them what he's really saying, but their hearts just can't hear it. And that's not because Paul was doing anything wrong or Paul was preaching the wrong message, because we all know Paul, don't we? We know his heart, we know that he was preaching out the right motive, the right place. But the people's hearts just couldn't grasp it, they couldn't process it, they couldn't accept Jesus. And then at the end we see that Paul is stoned and that he's dragged out. And I think it's important to see, I guess, and to comfort ourselves maybe, that even Paul, the crowds turned against. You know, even Paul, who was preaching these amazing sermons, you know, we read so much about Paul. He's probably second only to Jesus in the New Testament in terms of how much people talk about him. But even he, the crowds turned against. And so when we see people in our community, when our friends or our family turn against us because of what we're speaking, what we're preaching, what we stand for, we can be confident that, you know, we're standing with Paul, we're standing with giants when that happens. And it doesn't mean that it's easy. I'm not sure that Paul will have enjoyed being stoned. They say he was stoned so much that they thought he was dead, like he would have been in a bad way. But at the end, you know what he did? He got back up. He went back into the battle, back into the fight, back into God's mission, and we need to do that as well.